running this meetup with Ladja since I think like 2016 or so. And I guess quite a few of you know me, and I usually take talks that are kind of technical, complex topics and so on. This time we decided that we'll also do something for the newcomers, like something like obvious things, but maybe not so obvious for those who are new. It's going to be series. I hope that the numbering makes sense still to you. Maybe I'm just too old and I remember pirating all the videos like this. So that's the reference for those who don't know, who are only knows Netflix. So let's get started. I hope that maybe I'll start with a few questions. Who's actually developing in Go for less than 2 years? Okay, cool. Who's doing it for more than 10 years? Okay, yes. Cool. Good. It means that maybe there is something for every one of you. Let's see. So first things first, who I am. I'm Vilda. Well, like I go by Vilda. My name is Vilibald, but that's too complicated. I do it for a long time, and I actually started using Go when it was not even version 1. Right? I started with like, what was it, like version, yes, R57. It's like 2013, I think. And I was following and get to Go for the same reasons why Go was invented. I was writing HTTP servers in C++, horrible experience. Right? So I was really happy to jump ship. Cool. So, few things, what are we going to cover? Like just core principles, why style matters, and the hardest thing that I know in computer science. So, let's go, core principles. So, okay, something happened. Cool. Yes, thank you. It was cool. Yes, very nice. Now I'm surprised, like what happened? Let me see. Yes, I promised it's going to be short. So it was really short. Okay, cool. So let's now go by one by. You've seen it, like, so you can go home if you want. If it was too fast, like I'll try to like 1.5 speed, right? So simplicity over cleverness, that's what was one of the most important things, is like simple things are better in production than the clever things, right? So that drives a lot of the decisions in the language. I think that's part of the appeal, that a lot of things are simple and there's downside to it, like you write a lot of it sometimes, but that's the point. Readability counts, like that was one of the first goals was make it readable. And so how many of you have experience with C and C++? Okay, so you know like how bad that can be, right? Like everybody knows 40%, just unfortunately different 40%. Okay, so Go is unlike that, right? And there's a lot of conventions that go over configuration. So you don't have to specify it, write it somewhere, it just works because that's the culture. Cool. So simplicity. There's no ternary operators. I honestly, I dislike this one. I was a big fan, I was using it all everywhere, but hey, no ternary operators. Who knows what the ternary operator means? Okay, for those who don't, it's basically one line if condition. So you say this equals something if blah, blah, blah. You put in one line, and usually it comes with clever syntax like question marks, colons. Hey, and it's a if statement. Right? No operator overloading. Who knows what operator overloading is? If you're coming from Java and C++, you're exposed to it all the time. There's the hidden magic that, if you're doing plus and it's matrix, and matrix, it somehow adds this. right? That's a natural thing, but hey, anybody can override it anytime they want. So you end up in a mess. Nothing like that. And the goal is to have one obvious way how to do things. And I think Go is doing a pretty decent job with it. Okay, readability. The thing is that most of the time you read the code, you don't write it. So unlike Perl, for those who remember that language, that was like, write-only language. It was hard to read. Here we try to make it sure that you can read it. The thing is that the future you will thank you for being clear and easy to read. And this important thing, the little copying is better than little dependency. It's about like being extremely dry. Dry means don't repeat yourself. It's not really functional like very often. If you take it to the extreme, it becomes hard to find things because they are written once and they have like long chain of references and dependencies. Cool. So next one is the conventions over configuration. I think like most people basically rely on this these days. They don't even know that it's basically just on all conventions. And they don't know why, for example, things are the way they are, right? There's standard project layout, naming patterns, basically everyone follows them. And there's a lot of tools that they help you with that. Cool. So it means we don't debate style. Like if you're coming from a C++ world, like fighting where the braces are and stuff like that was all the time. Cool. So while the style matters, Go is opinionated. I guess like everyone knows. I think that basically Go is probably the only language where I see that I can jump into any code base and it basically looks the same. Right? There are differences, but more or less it's the same. So that's a cool thing. It goes with camel case and Pascal case. That means, they're written so you can read it. I don't have to explain. No snake case, no kebab case, no discussions about like how you write these things. Very cool. Everything is tabs, there's no spaces, you don't discuss that too either. I guess I hope that everyone is using Go font, right? If not, just do it. Right? Don't invent anything. Just go and do it. You write it, do whatever you want. It gets formatted for you. I really love this because I'm really bad at this, but then everything looks nice after I apply it. So I honestly very much dislike this style, to be honest. It's horrible. I really dislike how Go looks most of the time. But hey, there's no discussion, and that's a big, huge plus for me. So, actually, Go font is not everything. If you like to have a style flame war, there's all I really like people how inventive they are and how they come up with, bike shedding and arguing over a lot of things. So, if Go font is not everything, and you want to have a flame war, there's a tool for it. And, okay. Cool. You can go in. It's called Golang CI Lint. Is there someone who's not using it? Okay. I think you should. You will not like it. I fight with it all the time. I dislike it most of the time. But it solves a lot of other things. It's does anybody know who Marie Kondo is? That's a very famous Japanese person. She's into cleaning and all this, and it gives you how to fold stuff. And if you follow that, everything's perfect. This tool is like this. Then you apply it, everything's going to be perfect. It has plenty of options. So if you want to have a war, arguing one line here, one empty line here, and whatever, you can. Or go with default and you're fine. It is fast, and my personal favorite is when I do AI agent coding. That means someone else is coding, right? I tell them, hey, linting all the time goes through with this. So it's fine, it's always correct. And it catches a lot of things unused. This is one of the cool things that if you import something or you have a variable that you don't use, hey, this tool will find it and tell you you're not using it, you can go away. So that's one part. And there's other sort of like softer things about style. So for example, nobody likes nested ifs. In Go world, nested ifs are it's like distasteful, right? So you try to avoid it. Sometimes unnecessary, but you try to avoid it. Like there's on the left side, not really nice, like especially you go and give in return from the middle. It's even worse, right? The left side, more readable. And I guess that this is what most people write and they don't even think about it. If not, then just do it. The other one is error handling, right? That's a very famous, Golang is the if error language. Yes, it has its benefits though. All the errors get handled somehow. You cannot ignore it. And that was the point. So what you want to do is actually keep the success, as in the case you want, the most left you can get. So usually the last thing in the return in the function is the happy path. And the errors, yeah, you throw them in the middle anywhere they occur, you handle them and you move on. Otherwise, you get these horrible conditionals like, oh, if this error and this thing, blah, 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 it gets complicated. Just don't do it. Very easy to follow, I think. The other thing is how to sort imports. In the beginning, there was no guidance about this. I remember the days like, oh, imports, whatever. You don't care. Now, there are a lot of conventions. There is basically, these days, there's one convention. You start with the standard library first, then you pull in the third-party packages, and then your own packages. Easy to follow, and even easier is just use Go imports. Or Go FUMT, F-U-M-T, which it's just the same thing, basically, but sorts also the imports. No arguments. It actually formats the code. Even it's more strict than GoFMT. I think it's cool. Less discussions about style. One thing I really dislike that actually even exists in the language is something that's called named return parameters. How many people know about this feature? That you can actually cool. So those who don't, skip this slide, I never talked about it. This feature doesn't exist. Those who do, just don't use it. There are exceptions where it's maybe useful, but just try to avoid it in any case. All right, as much as you can. For those who don't know what it is, it means that you can actually, it's the second case here, you can, when you're basically writing the the function definition as the result, as the return, you can actually create variables and they are global for that function. So you can set them. And then you can return empty thing. And actually you are returning those, whatever the value is, if you set it or not, that's the thing. Here is a nice example why it's bad. Because in the first case, it's obvious, so it's like the user, okay, I fetch something from cache if there's an error. I most likely return nil in the user, and then the error from the cache, cool. Now, in the second one, notice the slight difference. It's not just equals. I'm actually creating a new variable called user. It's shadowing the top one. So now if you go return, you're actually going to return nil again, even though you might think you're actually returning a user. That's the biggest caveat I see, and I think it's basically, and I think it goes back to the readability. It's really hard to read when you have return, then returns nothing. And you have to figure out, like you go back at the front, okay, it's returning these values. And then figure out reading the code, like what actually could be the value. Horrible. Just don't do it. Context, I guess everyone is using this. Context goes first. If you put it somewhere else, you're just like making it so horrible for everyone, right? Because like everyone expects it in the beginning. If you put it in second, third place, just no. Now going back to the hardest thing, and that's in the computer science, is naming things, right? I'm doing it for a long time, and I think it's really hard because the reason is that the names, they convey sometimes meanings, and you build mental models out of it. So if you name something a certain way, you expect it to behave a certain way, right? And that can, in some cases, get very confusing. I think Go did a decent job on the conventions. So let's get to it. Good names. And this basically slide, I just took it from Andrew Gerard. He had a talk in like 2014 or so. It's in the references about names. So this slide is basically his. The good names, they should be consistent. You know, like if it's something that's like a timeout, best name is timeout, right? Something short, like for those who work in Java, they know that it can be really long. Just don't do it. And they should be easy to understand. And that's the meaning part, right? And that's the talk. Maybe I think it's very useful to go and look at the talk. It's really good. I'm basically making a bad job of it here. There's this sentence that the greater the distance between the name's declaration, so where you define the variable and the name, when you declare it, and when it's being used, that basically is there's a relationship between the length of that name, right? I'll show you what I mean. It totally makes sense. So this is like names by distance. Short names, like I, R, B, whatever, you put them in loops, for example. So you define it here, you have 3 lines. Okay, cool. You keep in head what it means, right? If it gets long, like it's a function that actually is like, you know, few tens of lines, you make longer names so they still keep what it means. Because if you see you lose, you don't know, right? Sometimes, if you need to use long names because your function is long, maybe you need to refactor your function. Just saying. Sometimes you don't even need the name. I don't know how many of you are using this approach, but when you need an intermediate and it's maybe a struct and you're like marshalling JSON to it, you don't have to even give it a name, right? You just declare it with a struct. That's the example I'm providing. That V has no type, like there's no name for it. But I don't care because I'm just using it as a one-off in a function. So now some nice examples, what are used for like single letters. And usually the names are like, well, it's a name. Technically it's a name, but it's 1 letter, right? IJK for indices, obvious. N for length, R is a reader, W is a writer. Is anybody not following this? Because I think like this so ingrained these days. But you can name it whatever you want. The writer doesn't have to be W if you want. But I would say please do it. Just everyone expects it this way, right? Context is CTX. Sorry, like it's the first on the function and it's called CTX. If you do something else, you're just doing it plain wrong. And you need the Golang CI linter, so it screams at you that you're doing it wrong. One other thing that I sometimes don't follow, and I'm happy that there are tools that fix me, is the acronyms. Like if you have ID, HTTP, XML, JSON, whatever, like well-known things, XML, it's uppercase, everything. It has been established in 2014, so I think it's, quite, something to follow. Now, receivers, aka this for those who are coming from different languages. Receiver, that's this. What most people go with is like single letter. And it was based on the idea that most of the time you use it so often and the functions are short. So you know, one letter sounds good. You know what that is. I dispute that sometimes, if it's like longer and so on. What I think is even more convenient to do is the receiver should have the name, what the variable would be used for that given object. So if you, for example, if you have request and everything is request, the receiver should be called REQ, R-E-Q, because that's the variable name. So you have it consistent when you're using it as well as inside, right? Then I'm using here the example of shopping cart. Like traditionally it'd be like either C or S, very short. But most likely the variable is going to, for that struct, is going to be called cart. So it's actually better to use cart as the name for the receiver. I don't know if you can set up this in the linter. I haven't tried. I'm using the default, so I don't know. Speaking of objects, there's no getters, or there are getters, but they don't have the get, but setters do. Not very consistent, but this is a convention that is being used already for a long, long time. Okay, interfaces. I guess everybody knows that interfaces end with but sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes it breaks English, right? So the first example, the canonical one, reader, everyone understands, easy, right? You take basically, if it's a interface that has just one function, it's cool. You basically take the name of the function, you add that's the name of the interface. It kind of breaks sometimes really badly with English. So, right, like the last example, read byter, right? The function name is cool, but, you know, I think they should have called it byte read, but that would be byte reader, that would be cool, but hey, the interface is called like this, so apply a judgment. When it's more than just one function, you try to make it a noun that makes sense, that captures what you're doing. Errors, variables always start with error, either capital or not, depending on if you're exporting it. I think there is nothing to add to it. You just do it. And for the types, they always end with error. So it's clear when you see this, it's error. And it's kind of like exceptions in some way. Well, very often in many languages, all the exceptions have exception in the name. So here error is in the name, so you know what it is, how to deal with that. Packages. Another place that can be tricky. General guidance is, hey, make it short, lowercase. It's single word, ideally, right? No underscores, no magic like this. Nothing special to do, I guess, to discuss. If you need, just avoid the underscores for the readability. Try to be inventive and come up with a name that actually is one word and makes sense, ideally. If you cannot, you know, I think you need to go back to the drawing board and start over and figure out some other name that's going to be short again. I told you naming is hard, right? Good naming, you can do a poor job of it, and yes, that's easy. The package names, they are part of the identifier. If you think about it, like a standard library is a nice example. Whenever you want some expiration, go to standard library. Most of the time, it actually follows what it preaches. So, nice example is this http.server. It's not called http.http server, right? Because, you know, the package name actually suggests what it is. Try to do that too, right? Don't make complicated things. And files, I think, and I promise this is the last one about names, and I'm really trying to make it short. basically lowercase, use underscores if you need. The reason is not all file systems are actually able to handle cases, right? It's everything lowercase, it's safe. It's going to work also on Mac, for example. That has, it's not sensitive. It depends how your settings. So that's why. And there are basically few suffixes that are special. That's the test. I guess everyone knows how to use that. It's going to be one of the other talks. I'll definitely cover that, or Ladja. And then the OS-specific, architecture-specific names are being used quite often. If you look at the standard library, you see it, and that's it for this installment. I would suggest go look at the Go Proverbs if you haven't seen it yet. It's a very nice video and a page with like some of the important sort of style, taste, matters of Go. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to take questions.